I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission. It's the regular meeting for January 24th. It is now 4 minutes after 4. We'll start with roll call. Please identify if you're present. James Leckie.
Here.
Mark Nelson.
Here.
Andy Arriaga. Megan Larson.
Here.
Scott Walters.
Here.
Steve Corey, here. We'll move on to ex officio members. Rochelle Klein. I'm sure if I have anything I need to ask. Okay. Quorum being present, we'll go ahead and move on to the business before us. First on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. Are there any comments? Oh, I should say, if there's a motion, please make the motion to go ahead and defer item 2 and staff program reports, the monthly presentation, to next month because Sayard is under the weather and is not with us at this meeting, but she can do it next month. Anyway, back to, are there any comments on the agenda?
So, Mr. Chair, to clarify, it's items 2, 3, and 4 that would be deferred?
Only item 2.
Only item 2. Thank you. With that, I would make a motion to adopt the agenda with the change to table item 2 under staff program report to next month.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda, but defer item 2 under staff program reports to next month. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission's ready for a vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. We then move on to consideration of the minutes from the October 25th meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. Are there any comments on the draft minutes?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the minutes as written. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes as written signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no. The motion passes. For the record, both Rochelle Klein and Andy Arriaga have joined us, so we'll continue on. We now move on to staff program reports. And with what's left, the next thing that's on the agenda is the quarterly tonnage report. Peter, you want to give us a quick review?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll see up on your screen a couple graphs. We are going to be looking at October, November, and December of last year. These first two show the curbside recycle and trash tonnage from those months. And stayed pretty regular during those last 3 months. Took a look at last year's, and it was a pretty similar pattern that we saw. More interestingly, the diversion rates, we did have a peak. We can attribute that to our LEAF program. So it's great to see that steep incline during the fall months and all of that waste being diverted. You also see here in the table that spike was about 14%. Last thing is last year's HHW tonnage. If you look across all 12 months, we had about an average of 10 tons per month. Again, we saw a spike in October and then it tapered off in those last 2 months.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions on the data that's been presented to us? We'll go ahead and move on to the next item then. An update on the bulky item service. Since we met in October, council picked up the issue and there was a change to what we had been discussing. So Peter, you want to give that quick review?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Indeed, at the end of last year, we did see some changes. We're very grateful for Republic Services for working out with us on this. Previously, we had 1 week during the year where bulky items were picked up. That was our spring cleanup. We have changed that to have 10 free bulky item pickups per calendar year for each account. One of the big reasons for this change was to give citizens more flexibility. Instead of having just that 1 week to get rid of their bulky items, they do have the full year to have those scheduled for pickup. And it also helps Republic Services as well to spread out the work throughout the year.
I might add, if you remember the proposal that had been brought before us, also went ahead and took away well, I shouldn't say that way, rolled the Christmas week into that effort. But City Council requested that the dedicated week after Christmas be kept, and it asked that Republic go ahead and provide data on use this year and then also this next year to see whether people start using other time rather than that week and use some of their 10 opportunities, or whether there's still just a major need for pickup that week after Christmas. So at least for 2024, the week after Christmas, we'll have a extra pickup. Any questions on the information that's been presented? Very good. Then we'll go ahead and move on to old business. First item under old business, item 5, utilizing the CRF. I just wanted to remind commissioners, based on the presentation that Alex gave, the city council does not want to go ahead and look at amendments for use of our money after May, June, sometime like that. If you had some kind of a project that you wanted to go ahead and have happen in FY24, that would need to be brought before us by the March meeting. I haven't heard of anyone that's got anything that they're planning to do per se in FY24. I think we're looking at a more serious look for FY25. And in that case, we'd like to go ahead and, for the first time, go ahead and do a normal budget, which means putting together our plans for FY25 to go in the May-June time period, to go ahead and allow it to be brought to council with their normal packages and be approved for FY25. So be expecting conversations about that kind of in a new vein as far as having a approved budget. I think the biggest thing on that's going to be coming out of some stuff we're going to talk about later on the CRF, and if there's going to be some kind of a grant program or something like that in FY25, or maybe that's even too early for us to jump into that, but we'll have that conversation later in the meeting. In relationship to that, I'll jump to item 6. At the start of this last quarter, that would be October 1st, the CRF was standing at $81,856.27. Over the quarter, there were 3 checks that we received for Hand in Hand We Recycle. totaling $3,106.28. So the budget at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, was just under $85,000. And we've actually received one more check in January for $1,000. So we're currently standing at just over $85,000. I'm going to roll in item 7 here. We had a subcommittee taking a look at the grant program and whether we wanted to have a grant window open. We had all 3 members that were on that finished their terms last year. At the end of the calendar year, we did get the report that based on conversations with legal, essentially all of the material in the paper package made sense, but there was a recognition that depending on how a grant window was opened and what kind of partitions there may in there, then there would be a need to go ahead and take care of changes to the paperwork. But that subcommittee has no one in it at this particular point. And so I would really appreciate it if there's anyone who wants to volunteer to go ahead and take a look at how we want to go ahead and handle the CRF at this point, whether we want to go ahead and use it for dedicated projects or whether we want to have a grant window or whatever, to be able to make a recommendation back to the committee. Understand that would have to happen fairly fast. We would need to have that come back in February, maybe March at the latest, for a vote by the commission, so that we could go ahead and then, as I mentioned, present it to council for their consideration in our FY25 budget. But I'll start back through these in reverse order. Is there anyone that wants to volunteer to be on that grant subcommittee?
Mr. Chair, I have a question first. So the window is tight for a grant to be made in FY25. We would need to have a program lined out. We have the bones of something with the existing forms. They may or may not be changed, and we'd have to have all that ready to vote on by March to hit FY25. But we could do an FY26 grant cycle and work out the details of the program at a more leisurely pace to be ready for FY26. My concern is that if we miss this March window and then kind of nothing happens, we stop meeting in October, we get back here in January, and we're kind of in the same boat where we don't quite have enough time to do it. So I would wonder if we could consider that the grant subcommittee could form and either be ready for an FY25 cycle or an FY26 cycle. I think the work is the same. And I wouldn't want to delay that work just because we couldn't make the 25 budget cycle.
Rolling that into a question, I would answer it to go ahead and say that, yes, your point is well taken. And I think it's very important that the subcommittee realize if they're trying to go ahead and accelerate this thing, exactly what the workload is on this thing. I think there are some very good reasons why looking at FY26 makes a lot of sense. Anyway, commissioners, any other?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just was wondering, maybe if without an accelerated timeline, if we could work with city departments. I don't know if that's too narrow of a scope, but we've done that in the past where we did like recycled plastic play equipment in one of the city parks, or recycled aluminum baseball benches, or we work with the Arts Commission to have recycled artwork out here in the little island. I'm sure there's a name for the island, but with matching funds, is it possible to open something up sooner with just city, I don't know, their commissions, if that's too narrow of a scope, and then maybe do some matching funds there and get something done in fiscal year 2025?
valid input, and I think I do not want to prejudice the subcommittee. And so I'm not going to go ahead, I would not recommend going ahead and charging them with that limitation, but I do think they need to understand how much work it would be. It would be quite a sprint. But regardless, anyway, is there anyone who wants to volunteer to be on the committee?
I have another question,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. So the charge of the committee is not to develop the grant program. The charge of the committee is to make recommendations on what to do with the CRF funding as a whole, which might be a grant program, which might be sponsoring city art or public works efforts, or it might be outreach activities. Is that?
Correct.
And
My
Mr.
question
Chairman,
is,
we
is
even
that
did
accurate?
partnered with the library for that mini library shipping container that turned out to be a tiny, I mean, we have been able to do some pretty cool work with people who have shelf-ready projects, if that helps. But I'm with Commissioner Larson.
So the library, they did apply for a grant, the library did, for that project. Yeah, so, but park benches and recycling cans and things like that maybe are not through the normal, or not through a grant application process necessarily.
The key point is that we as a commission at some time will have a motion to use the funds. And if a majority of us agree with that motion to go ahead and use those funds in some fashion, then it will be presented to council, and council will determine whether they give us authority to go ahead and use those funds in that fashion. So, yes, what comes out of this subcommittee to go ahead and give us something to work with can run, there are no limits on the scope of this. If the subcommittee wanted to present to the commission that all of the money should be used in outreach activities, then that's where we'll start on our conversation and work forward. If they want to go ahead and say that all the money should come out in a grant program, then we'll start from that particular point. If they want to go ahead and make a recommendation that a third of it be used in FY '25 and a third of it be used in FY '26 and a third of it would be used for outreach activities, so be it. The whole point is that a couple of people will just kind of have a couple of opportunities to get there together and talk about it, and give us a jump start in the February meeting to go ahead and either decide we're going to reserve all the money for a little bit longer, or if we're going to go ahead and try to start tapping into any of it. Whatever gets recommended will be the starting point for the whole commission to go ahead and start talking.
Mr. Chair, I'll volunteer for the committee.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to volunteer.
Going once, going twice. Okay, so the subcommittee will be Rochelle, Meg, and myself. And we'll go ahead and try to get together sometime in the next couple of weeks so whatever works for your schedules. Mine has a bit more flexibility as a retired person, so let's just kind of communicate by email and set down a time. Working backwards, is there any comments on the information that was presented as far as the CRF balance or on utilizing CRF funds? Any additional questions or comments on that? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the Community Art Party Reclaimed Art Contest. Commissioner Larson, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to refresh, we did participate in last year's art party in the September of 2023. We did a contest, make a piece of art with recycled materials. Our number of entries was pretty limited to that contest, but we had lovely art and we tabled at the event. And so in previous discussions, we had kind of talked about sort of giving it one more try, doing additional outreach, starting earlier, doing some outreach to the schools before they let out for the summer and so forth, to see if we could generate some more interest and participation in the project. And then depending on that, how that went, whether we would continue it beyond that. But it is the type of thing that other cities around the country have done successfully with more participation. So I would be in favor of giving it a little bit further effort. So to that end, this spring, we'll be working on outreach, working on getting some sponsors for the prizes from the business community and getting that together.
Members of the commission, is there any comments on that information?
I agree. Chair. Yeah, same thing. I think it was a good start to the program. I think there's lots of opportunities for outreach, especially at like schools. So.
Mr. Chair, we might just, I don't know if that subcommittee still exists with Commissioner Larson, but I think it's a great idea. So we used to run our own recycled art, kind of promotional, like giveaway. We would sponsor an ice cream party for classrooms. And we just did it in the Boise School District at the elementary schools. And we had amazing art just by reaching out to the elementary schools. And actually one year, one kid won because he took leftover crayons that he picked up off the first grade floor the whole year. And then he made shavings. Made shavings on wax paper and his mom ironed it and he made something really neat. And he said, I didn't have any money for a budget, but I really wanted to win. And it was really neat. So the kids got really creative. And I just think like Commissioner Larson's right, not enough people knew about it, but I think that schools would love to participate and kids can get pretty creative. So I'm glad we hopefully will support it again.
Commissioners, any further comments or? Okay, I believe I'm hearing a consensus that we want to go ahead and participate in, or go ahead and champion a recycled art contest during Art Week. Obviously, there's a lot of details that have to be worked out. I also am very well aware that Commissioner Larson has some great contacts on the art contest, on the art committee here in the city of Meridian and such, as well as some of the art educators in the community. And so without objection, I'd like to go ahead and have the commission's confirmation that they do want us to go ahead and participate in Art Week, and that we'll let Commissioner Larson go ahead and be the champion for taking care of that. Any comments on that motion edict voluntolding?
Mr. Commissioner, or excuse me, Chair, I would like to recommend that, or motion that we join the community art party with the reclaimed art contest.
That's a little bit better process for all this stuff. It's been moved that we participate in the community art party. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Solid Waste Advisory Commission go ahead and participate in the community art party. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of the Solid Waste Advisory Commission participating in the community art party for 2024 signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. Thank you. But I am going to go ahead and ask that Commissioner Larson go ahead and continue to champion this, knowing, well, that I always go ahead and volunteer to go ahead and do what I can on this too. So we'll report back with you as things progress. We'll move on to the next new business item, number 9, and it is January. And at that time, we go ahead and have election of chair and vice chair for 2024. We'll go ahead and open the floor for nominations for chair and proceed from there, depending on the nominations. Are there any nominations for chair for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission for 2024?
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Steve Corey for chair.
Does that require a second?
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Steve Corey go ahead and be nominated for chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Commission for 2024. I am honored and would be willing to, I do accept the nomination. Thank you. Are there further nominations for chair? Understand if there were other nominations, I would turn the chair over to the vice chair, but are there further nominations? Per Robert's rules, are there further nominations? Having given 3 opportunities, nominations for chair are closed. The chair would, I guess, all those in favor of Steve Corey being chair for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission for 2024 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The motion passes. Thank you. I hope to keep your trust. We will move on to the position of vice chair for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. Are there any nominations for vice chair for the 2024 year? Meg Larson has been nominated for vice chair for 2024
Second.
and seconded. Commissioner Larson, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I am, thank you.
Are there further nominations for vice chair? Further nominations? And finally, further nominations? Then nominations will be closed. All those in favor of Meg Larson being vice chair for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission for 2024, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, a couple of items here. As I understand, Bill, just to remind me, effectively our schedule kind of rolls and it's there. So the record for our meetings is the 4th Wednesday of each month at 4 o'clock. 2 items here. First off, however, the May 22nd meeting for that happens to be the same week as the Public Works, the Expo. It's being moved from June into March. And so we don't have to do anything about this now, but presuming we're keeping the 4th Thursday meeting, in the next meeting or so, we need to go ahead and either cancel a meeting in May or move the meeting in May to another time. It could move to the 5th Wednesday, May 29th, or adjust some other way. But, and of course, as always, the way our schedule's set up, we don't meet in November or December since that 4th Wednesday comes very close to Thanksgiving and Christmas. So moving on to the next item, the 2024 meeting schedule. Um, I'll open up for comments if there's any issues with the fourth Wednesday, but unless there's a motion or something like that. Anyway, members of the commission.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't be able to make the May 29th meeting.
You would not.
I would not.
Okay.
Be out of town.
And as I mentioned, we don't need to make an adjustment this month, but we do need to make an adjustment before May because it'll be difficult to get back here into council chambers during Public Works Expo.
Mr. Chair, a question. Do we know what the options are? I know there's other commissions and meetings going on here in the chamber, so what our choices are for that May meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yeah, so your ordinance does say you'll establish your meeting schedule at this meeting every year. But to move it from the predetermined one that you have, probably will take some effort with the clerk's office to see how to move, because you've got the Parks Commission meets on Wednesdays, the first and third Wednesdays of each month. The HPC meets on the fourth Thursday of the month. The Planning and Zoning meets on the first and third Thursdays of the month. Council meets on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. The Planning and Zoning, or excuse me, the Arts Commission meets on the third Thursday. So, I mean, all of them have kind of scoped out that. I actually don't think anyone meets on Monday. So if that's the desire of this commission to move to another day, we can. We probably need to make sure with the clerk's office it doesn't run into conflicts.
For starters, to go ahead and kind of clean this up a little bit, let's focus on, do we feel like we need to change our basic time of the fourth Wednesday at 4 o'clock? I'm seeing some head shaking no's and such, so,
Mr. Chair, I don't see any reason to
okay.
change it.
Seeing no motion on that, we'll go ahead and continue with our fourth Wednesday. As far as May is concerned, Sayard had talked to me 2 weeks ago. And of course, as Bill had mentioned, obviously a fifth Wednesday would have nobody in on it. So she was willing to go so far as to say that fifth Wednesday was available, but she hadn't looked any further. I see no reason why we can't just leave that with Sayard and she can come back at the February meeting and give us some options as far as some other days there in the latter half of May that we could meet as an alternate. So unless anyone's got any driving desire at this particular point, we'll go ahead and hand that back to Sayard. Very good. That brings us up to item 12, which is the Ada County SWAC meeting. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee met this morning at 10:30. The things I do want to pass on is the landfill now has a new director, Bruce, trying to think of Bruce's last name, but regardless, has been an acting manager at this particular point, and they now have a new full-time manager, Herb Cantu. Herb had a similar position down in California. I think during the meeting, they were saying Santa Clara, California, though I had kind of heard one of the other Santas in California as the city was working with, but he also mentioned doing work with Fresno County. His background covers everything that we've got in our area as far as collection activities, operation of the landfill, overseeing capital accounts, overseeing operations and such. I believe he's got extensive experience at this particular point, and I'm hoping that this will be a good fit and that he should be very successful in his position. 2 weeks ago, when we went ahead and did the scheduling meeting for that meeting, there was some indication about some desire for conversation about household hazardous waste. But when we got to the meeting this afternoon, the extent of it was just to acknowledge the requests for locations to be put into the contract. And just to pass forward on this, Sayard went ahead and submitted her written comments on this for the city of Meridian. And she went ahead and informed them that on top of continuing our once-a-week activity at the transfer station, we want it available, the opportunity to find out how much it would cost, and at some time, maybe deciding if we want to go ahead and act on it for a second location. In fact, what we've got on that is a location in North Meridian, and then another one south of the interstate, 2 weeks collecting up in the north part of the city, and then 2 weeks in the south part of the city. So basically, each week there'd be 2 collections, though, and always one of them at the transfer station, but the other one would alternate between North and South Meridian. I guess pending approval by the contractor that they are actually going to provide these services. And then at some time in the future, I would expect we'll probably want to open up a conversation about whether there's a need to expand solid or hazardous waste collection in the city. Meridian and Eagle went ahead and submitted their requests for hazardous waste collection. So other than ours, I didn't really see much difference in locations and such. And that's pretty much the extent of the meeting this morning. Is there any questions on the information I've passed on from this morning's meeting? Okay. We'll move on to the next item, item 13. And this one's just had kind of an information deal. The mayor's office received back early in December a comment from the public. Many of you may have noticed on leaf collection this last season, things went fairly well, went very well during the 3 weeks of collection, first 3 weeks of November. I know in my own personal experience, I had some trees that dropped leaves the week before. I collected them and set them aside and then put them out on the curb, and they were picked up, and then did another collection at the end of the 3 weeks. But that weekend after the 3 weeks of curb collection, we had a pretty significant rainstorm, cold weather, a snap, and a lot of leaves fell the week afterwards. And so this particular resident was just noting that they had collected their leaves the week after and didn't realize that it was out of the 3-week window, and staff followed up with them and pointed out that we did have the opportunity with the bins that were at the parks for people to be able to drop off their leaves for a 6-week period from, I think, the last week in October through the first week in December, and such. But regardless, I just wanted to go ahead and make you aware that we did have a request from a citizen, and we always want to be aware of it. It's been a while since we've discussed leaf collection, but it's tough to prognosticate which 3 weeks are going to be a wonderful 3-week window for when leaves are going to drop. Mother Nature doesn't seem to really heed our memos, but we have made that adjustment with the bins in the park and other things. So that information has been presented back to the citizen. And again, something I just want to make sure that I pass on to the commission is if we ever get any comments to the mayor through the mayor's office on any of our activities, that it gets passed on to the commission and they're aware of it. Understanding we'll be going into uh, stakeholder updates next on this thing, but regardless, Rochelle, do you feel like you need to follow up on any of that conversation, or if I've done a good job on it, then
Great job, Mr. Chairman.
okay. If anyone has any questions on that comment, now would be a appropriate time to ask about that. But I do want to pass back to staff that I was very happy with the way that they went ahead and picked that up and went ahead and responded back to the person. And I, at least at this point, I believe that the issue is understood. And with that, we've taken care of our business and we'll move into stakeholder updates. Stakeholder update would be Republic Services. And in particular, I know you're going to go ahead and give us an update on the MRF, but feel free to introduce anyone.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So today I want to introduce, and if Cord wants to come up and introduce herself. So we have a new general manager, and Bob Bennett, who was with us for a while, opened a business in Nampa. So he's close by, but he was pretty open about saying when he turned 50, it was sort of on his bucket list. So he opened a business. And so that gave us the opportunity to bring Cord back to Idaho, and I'll let Cord come up and introduce himself. And as a matter of fact, he's the perfect person to give the MRF update as well, because last time we were here, we hadn't closed yet on Western Recycling. So this is Cord, and take it away, Cord.
Thank you, Rochelle. Can everybody just hear me if I speak from here? So, hey. If I don't, okay, well, I'll lean over here then. So, hey, everybody, it's nice to meet you. My name's Cord Stanley. I'm the new general manager for Republic Services for the state of Idaho. A little bit about me. I grew up in Kansas, actually, and commissioned in the Army after school and spent a little time around the country, and went to business school after that and was hired by Republic Services into their general manager training program, where I was fortunate enough to come up here to train for a couple of years from 2019 to 2021. And I was a student of Bob's for about a year. And then the company shipped me off to Southwest Illinois to be a GM for a first time down there. And when Bob let me know that he was getting ready to resign, I like to tell everybody, I basically started running down the highway, and they picked me up on the way. So it's great to be back. My wife and I absolutely love Idaho. We want to stay here for the rest of our lives if we can at all help it. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and we're proud to be a part of the community. So if there's any questions about for me about that, I can move right on to a MRF update. Okay. So, we closed on Western Recycling, and we have 4 locations now. Fruitland, Nampa, Boise, and over in Pocatello. So we kind of service all across the state of Idaho. We don't necessarily have a strong footprint up in the north, but everything in the south, we have our hands in now at this point with as far as recycling goes. So some exciting things to come for us, particularly at the Boise recycle facility. We're looking to make some infrastructure and technology upgrades. We don't know what everything we want to do just yet, and things are fluid, right? So when I say some technological upgrades, I can give a couple of items that we're looking at, but that's always subject to change. So one of the first things we want to do is get an OCC screen, a cardboard screen, and that's just to improve the quality of our material that when it goes to the mills, and then 2, capture more of it. So it has a lot of benefits for us as a business and for us as members of the community too. The second item that we're going to look to is an optical sorter for plastics. So to help plastic bales to be 1s, 2s, and 5s, and crinkly plastic bottles potentially as we develop the program and we make adjustments with the cities over time and what that looks like and what communication might look like down the road. We're not looking to make any dramatic changes anytime soon, But just know that that could be on the horizon, and we'd provide ample notification and communication in conjunction with our cities on what that would look like. But at some point, those plastic bales, we want to get them to our brand new polymer center down in Las Vegas. It's kind of it's first of its kind. I don't know, Rochelle, has that been discussed at all? A little bit. So they're super advanced facilities that we're starting to spring up across the country. First of their kind, and they are, it's a bottle for bottle program is what I think the punchline is, and that's the plastics that we put into the facility are going to be turned into bottles directly for manufacturers. Our biggest customers is Coca-Cola, and they can't get enough of the material that's going to the facility as it is. So it's kind of exciting that we're going to have a great use from our plastics and be able to expand the plastics that we are able to use down the road. So exciting things are happening. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Members of the commission, I guess I'll kind of start on this. I'm really want to thank Republic for stepping up on this thing. Obviously, as mentioned on this with Greensward and Green Fence activities that occurred 5 to 6 years ago that went ahead and all of a sudden swallowed up our recycling opportunities, recognizing that there weren't very many opportunities internationally and such. I want to commend Republic for stepping up and creating a domestic facility for this activity, and look forward to the opportunities there. Members of the commission, do you have any questions or comments on Republic's presentation?
It's very nice to meet you all, and I look forward to getting to know you all a little bit better over time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cord. And the last thing I wanted to just add, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this isn't really necessarily a SWAC report, but we do use the transfer station as a community asset. During the year, each year we partner with the Meridian Police Department for drug takebacks. And I don't know if I mentioned this because this was the end of October and we didn't meet in November, December, but at the end of October, we did have a drug takeback. Have you guys already heard these statistics? I don't know. Did we already share them? Sarah did. But this year we had 151 cars and 350, almost 358 pounds, 357.9 pounds of medications that were collected during that window of time at the transfer station. It's just a Saturday for 4 hours, but we did pull, almost 360 pounds of drugs off the street, and 151 people felt like it was worthwhile to drive through and drop their stuff off. So not necessarily trash related, but just a transfer station partnership that we try to bring forth and remind you guys that we are out there helping with this. And we also at that time handed out Sharps containers for people who that didn't realize that there's a Sharps take back program at the transfer station as well. Thanks.
Hey, Rochelle, could you give a brief update about our bicycle giveaway last December?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Walters. Well, Commissioner Nelson happened to be on vacation in Mexico, I believe, right? So he didn't join us, but we do a couple times a year take bikes out to Farmway Village, which is it's a like a migrant, it's a seasonal, mostly seasonal worker camp. And so there are people that live there year round, but there's a great staff out there, and the bikes that we take out there, they all get used, and you don't see them laying around broken. They're passed from person to person. So we took 50 bicycles, maybe 50 bicycles out to Farmway Village. Commissioner Walters and I did, and Dan, the volunteer, Dan Frazier, that he won an award to. So he was with us, and we set up our little bike shop, and they were all gone within, the school buses come back and the kids just start running from the school buses to get their bikes. And it's pretty exciting. And this time we gave a bicycle to one of Teresa, who's one of the employees there, and they're all just amazing people who work there. And so we had brought some bikes, and with the intention or hope of giving them to two of the employees there. There's this really big guy, I can't remember his first name, but the two of them that help with it every single time. We gave them bicycles, but then one girl came after school, probably a junior high age girl, and she didn't have a bicycle because they were all gone. So of course, the woman who we gave a bike to that works there gave her bike to the girl, and she was really happy. So we actually brought more bikes back for the kids who were slow runners off the bus, and then the staff too. So it's, even though this is outside of Meridian, it's definitely a community benefit. They love these bikes. It's pretty heartwarming. I mean, the only bike left was a 10 speed, like a breaking away old school, super tall 10 speed that nobody there was tall enough to ride. So, they took it inside and they said, we're sure somebody will come in that's like 6'5" or taller to ride this tall 10 speed, but all the rest of the bikes go immediately. So, and it's very sweet. Like if kids are faster than their siblings, they'll like grab a bike for their sibling first and then one for themselves and stuff. So anyway, thank you for always supporting that program, and Commissioners Nelson and Walters for always showing up and fixing bikes. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that update. And that's a good point that we intentionally do not ever want to restrict who receives a bike from that program to the boundary of Meridian. It's, we all benefit by getting that stuff out of the landfill and out of the transfer station and then back into the community. But that's an awesome, it's a very rewarding program out there. It does, you have to be ready to get rid of 40 or 50 bikes in 15 minutes. And plus, that program supported Boise Bike Project a lot this year, and you had to have gotten rid of a record number of bikes this year. And yes, and thanks again to Republic Services. They moved us around a few times while they're doing all the remodels, but they gave us an enclosed location, and we can work on the asphalt instead of the gravel. And we have a secure place to store our tools and those sorts of things. And so it's a much better location for us to have volunteers help us out there.
And I do kind of expect that within a couple of months, you'll start telling us when you guys are going to be getting together so that anyone who wants to refurbish bikes and go ahead and get them available can join you.
Yes, and we did kind of do an inventory September or October, and I have kind of a list of some consumables to repurchase. We'll kind of start taking care of around March or April, whenever we're kind of closer. Unfortunately, I have no interest in going out there in this weather.
That shows extensive amounts of sanity. Okay, with that, that takes care of everything that's on our agenda. And I think our next meeting would be February 28th. I did kind of have an interesting tidbit passed back to me about something from HDR's Young Professionals Group. I'm kind of hoping maybe you will have a discussion on that next month. If there are any other agenda items that we need to pick up, as always, drop me a note or Saird. And like I say, we go ahead and put together the agenda 2 weeks before the regular meeting. But we'll try to incorporate anything that gets presented to us. And with that, as I say, we've completed all the business that's on the agenda, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. It is now 4:57. Thank you for everything you do for the city of Meridian.